evening. I first would like to introduce my audience to you. I want to thank you all for being here this evening. Did anybody know that April is National Donate Life Month? Well, it is, and the need is very real for organ donation. Tonight I want to talk to you about becoming an organ donor and the importance of the gift of life. 117,000, more than 117,000 people are waiting for an organ. And each day, an average of 79 people receive an organ transplant. 18 of those people will die waiting for an organ. And one donor, did you know one donor can save up to 8 lives? But you can help with that. I want to persuade you this evening and discuss with you the very important issue of organ donation and giving the gift of life, and hoping that you will consider it as well. As a nurse and just as an individual, I've grown to become a supporter of organ donation. I see it in the patients that are organ recipients and how well they do, as well as a personal experience from a family member who was an organ recipient. So you never know, one day you or your loved ones may have the need for an organ donation to help save your life. Some things I want to discuss with you tonight are some interesting facts about organ donation, as well as a little bit of my personal story about it, statistics about organ donation, and some of the myths that are out there about organ donation. So some of the interesting facts coming from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services talk about research they've done as of May 4th of 2009. They show the percentage of recipients that are still living 5 years after their organ transplant. And they covered right here 4 of them. Kidney, 69.3%, still going strong. Heart, 74.9%, that's great. Liver, 73.8%. And lung, 54.4%. As I mentioned to you, I have a little personal interest in it as well, because I do have a cousin. His name's Dan Moeller. He had a liver transplant more than 5 years ago. Dan had a debilitating hereditary liver disease that he just kept getting sicker and sicker, and eventually he did get up on the organ transplant list. He received an organ transplant, I want to say, yeah, it was over 5 years ago. And since then now, he's been able to live a fuller, better quality life. He's been able to see his grandson be born. He's been able to see his daughter graduate college. He's been able to still take those long vacations with his wife every year, which he enjoys. And those are very important for your quality of life. And without that, being a recipient of organ donation, that would have not been possible. So the statistics are really impressive about organ donation, but the need is still very strong, and it's rising. As I said before, currently over 120,000 men, women, and children are awaiting organ transplants in the United States. And some of those are multicultural patients. You'll find that some ethnic groups have a greater need because of diseases that are more prominent in their ethnicity. But over 65,000 multicultural patients waiting. Children, over 1,700 pediatric patients awaiting for transplant. In 2011, they said that 28,000 and more than 20,000 organ transplants were performed. In 2012, there were 14,000 donors, a little over 14,000 donors. There's been more than 46,000 cornea transplants in 2012. And more than 1 million tissue transplants, they're done each year. But that surgical need for tissue is really steadily rising. I believe that some people refuse to be an organ donor because of the myths that are attached to it. Some people say, oh, I'm too old or I'm too young to be a donor, or that people think if they're ill and they go to the hospital and they're an organ donor, that the hospital staff is not going to take care of me as well because they want my organs for somebody else. They think that they're not in the best of health, so they're not able to donate. That's not necessarily true. And some do feel that it is against their religion to donate their organs. And some people feel like they cannot have an open casket funeral if they donate their organs. But some of the facts are actually that most people, a majority of people, regardless of age or health condition, can be an organ donor. And regardless of history or, as I said, age, there's no cost to donors or their families for organ donation. And most major religions in the United States support organ donation. There are some that don't, but most do. And organ and tissue donation will not affect you having an open casket funeral. I want to be able to paint you a picture and give you a visual of how great the need is for us to become organ donors. Right now there are more than enough people waiting for an organ to fill a large football stadium twice over. I mean, just look at that. That's huge. Twice over for a football stadium. That's a very great need. In 2007, this is some of the most recent data that they have, there were almost 2.5 million deaths in the United States. Now imagine if every one of those were an organ donor. So what is it that you can do to become an organ donor? How do you start that ball rolling? Well, according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they want you to cover all the bases. So you can actually register with your state's donor registry. You can designate your decision on your driver's license. I'm up for renewal this year, so I definitely am going to put that on my license to be an organ donor so that everybody can see that. But also you need to talk to your family. When it comes down to it, if you express those needs and your family doesn't follow through, then you won't be an organ donor. It's up to your family to follow through with your wishes and needs for that. Tell your physician, your faith leader, and friends that you want to be an organ donor, and include it in your advance directives, your will, your living will. These are ways that you can cover all the bases to be an organ donor. And as I said, remember, currently more than 100 million people in the U.S. are signed to be a donor. Won't you sign up and join them and consider being an organ donor and giving someone the gift of life? Thank you.